When is a good age to stop breastfeeding? How do you know when to stop?
Well, it's really a personal decision. The Leche League, we believe in weaning at nature's pace, but we certainly don't mean that mothers have to go on breastfeeding till their children are in high school.
Can you imagine?
I can't, it would be awful. It's really time to stop. We're ideally minimum of age 2 as the World Health Organization recommends. But after that, for as long as mom and her toddler want to continue and are comfortable doing so, there are many mothers breastfeeding their toddlers who aren't doing it in public anymore. They've set limits to when breastfeeding takes place and when it doesn't. And it's a really useful tool for easily and quickly getting baby back to sleep at night so that they're not spending hours trying to rock and pacify a baby who really just wants the comfort of the breast. And comfort is a legitimate need. And breastfeeding, one of the needs it meets is comfort. But when a mother wants to stop or the toddler shows signs of wanting to stop, then it's time to stop. And toddlers
what are some signs?
Well, in a toddler, they just generally breastfeed less and less until one day you notice, hang on a second, when last did we breastfeed? And no one can quite remember. And that can be any time, usually from about age 2 to 4. That's the sort of average age. Occasionally there are children who would go well on until about age 7, which is the upper limit. But in our society, that's not something we generally see, and personally I don't know anybody who's breastfed that long, and I think that even those who do, it's quite rare. Usually age 4, occasionally age 5 there's a child, but when I say breastfeeding, they're probably having a sip every 3rd or 4th day at bedtime when they remember to ask. For a mother, when she's had enough, she might just be feeling completely touched out. She's had enough and it's making her agitated to breastfeed. And we usually say to those mothers, make the decision on a day when you're not in the thick of things feeling really touched out so that you don't regret it. And if you sit there on a day when you're feeling comfortable about it and you say, no, this is it, I've had enough, I'm no longer comfortable feeding in front of my family, this child looks like a great big strapping child and I'm not comfortable breastfeeding anymore, then it's fine to stop. And there are ways to do that. Things like not offering and not refusing as a good way to start, and then setting some limits so that we only breastfeed at home, not when we're out. And then using things like when your child does ask, you start distracting them or using another tool to meet that need, like maybe they're bored, so reading a story with them or doing a puzzle. And then slowly but surely you end things off, gently taking your child's needs into account.
Okay, great. So my next question was, how do you transition from breastfeeding to normal feeding? But I think you answered that. It's just a normal, it just takes its course.
A progression.
Yeah,
yes,
it just happens.
But you perhaps mean solid foods maybe as well.
Yep. I would imagine that you would be feeding solid food.
Yes, and breastfeeding.
Time.
Yes, and certainly if you're breastfeeding a 2-year-old, they've been eating solid foods for a long time already. Often, usually around about 6 months, children are sitting up and they are grabbing things, and they grab food as well and they put it in their mouth. And usually after a few days of licking the food and sucking it, they start chewing it and swallowing it, and then they're on solids. Some mothers like to puree the food and give it to them, and other mothers are happy for the baby just to sit with the family at meal times and help themselves. And from that point, they can also be offered a cup of water to drink at their meal times as well. And really it's just a gradual transition.